Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton ADR, North Carolina, and of course, this wonderful MAAP community where we talk about different things that are of concern to pet owners so that they can make a plan for their pet. I was just talking before the recording came up that I was speaking with a divorce attorney this afternoon. There's a newspaper that wants to write an article on divorcing with pets, and a colleague of mine recommended that he speak with me. And when we were finished speaking, he said, I had no idea about any of that because he's simply a divorce attorney, and that's not a criticism. Don't get me wrong. However, both the court and divorce attorneys don't understand, which we do, that's why we're here in the MAAP community, how important our pets are to us. And when you're divorcing, you're not your best self most of the time. And so being able to have a conversation where you actually talk about what's in the best interests of your pet, which is now the standard in New York. You just want to get even with your ex and never have them see the dog again, and you never want to see them again, and that's the deal. However, I have coined this phrase, and if anyone uses it but me, I'm going to be so angry. Unfortunately, your pet doesn't hate your ex. You would like your pet to hate your ex. You would. However, most of the time, your pet does not hate your ex. I know this because my dogs live in my skin 24/7 when I'm home. When I'm not home, they live in my husband's skin. And if I was to fall off the dock and drown, my dogs would easily turn around, say to my husband, "You're our person," and be with him happy as clam boats. They would miss me maybe for about 5 minutes, but as long as they were fed and had the backyard to run in, I think that they would survive because this is the other person who they know. So tonight I was going to check in with everybody, which is always what I do. So for Alexandra, I want you to know that we check in. We just give our name, who our pets are, where we're from, and what brings us here today, so that if you have any specific questions, I can answer them. Tonight, I'm going to do a little bit of address the needs of the pet because I'm speaking with a group called Rebound Dog, which Kieran Walsh and I are participants in this group. And we were talking about one piece of dog and cat and bird and horse importance, which is nutrition. And I know Jan is a big proponent of that. And I know that Connie and Sally are big proponents on nutrition. So is Susan. These are our regulars. So I'm so glad you're here. I'll start with someone else so that you get your feet wet and hear what we do. And then I'll go into the nutrition. We usually have a good 10, 15 minutes of check-in because we love all the pets. So Sally has Irish setters. Jan has a wonderful American bred dog. Connie has Wheatons. Kieran is our local guy without a dog, but has written a great book on dog ownership responsibility. And Susan has a beautiful Catan. So I'm going to start with Jan. How are you doing today? And how's Tonka?
We're good. Yeah, everything is good. Thank you, Philippe. Yeah, we're all good. I'm excited. Your podcast got launched. I think I sent it to you.
Oh, fabulous. Yes, you did.
Yeah. And so that was exciting for me. And I'm sure he's happy because I'm happy. No, he's happy. He likes being on podcasts too. No, but all is good. And I actually, it's so funny because I actually was going to mention that we really always concentrate on talking about dogs. And maybe it's because we all have dogs and nobody has a cat. But I've had so many cats through the years Tonka loves cats, and we've had 3 together. And so, just being a part of my life. So I actually thought maybe we should talk a little bit more.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And of course, I have a grandkitty, Jane, who I take a great amount of interest in because I am her appointed caregiver. I am. So absolutely, we're going to do that. So great you brought that up, Jan. And how did your program go? Because Jan is also a Reiki master as well, and she does it with the dogs or the cats or the birds or the horses, and also with people to give us some grounding now in these times of turmoil. How did it go on Sunday?
Oh, it was good. Great. Really good. Yeah.
I'm sorry I couldn't join. It was a crazy day.
Yeah, no, it was okay. I had somebody there who said to me, my cat usually doesn't hang out with me or whatever. And the cat was like glued to her the entire time. It was really funny.
It's really a good thing to do with your animals. I absolutely recommend it 100%. Sally, how are the old girls?
The old girls are great. Very fortunately, our weather has gotten slightly cooler and the sun is now rising at 6 a.m. here. So we started walking and they both went right with me and we were having a great time. And then Roxy realized, wait, the pack is missing one person. And she made a U-turn and went back home. We were at the vet yesterday, and the vet said we make our food for our dogs. And she said, let's add some more potatoes because they're both dropping weight. And one I wanted to drop weight, and the other one I want to gain weight. So we're trying to balance out the carbs, the vegetables, the cheese, and the protein to get the right balance. And yeah, so that's what we're up to. But thank heavens the weather isn't hot, hazy, humid any longer.
Yeah, I'm still waiting here in North Carolina. Hey, Connie, how's the weather in California? Better?
It is hot, hot, hot and humid. It's very monsoonal here. And in fact, our mountains and deserts have been having horrible flash floods, including up at Big Bear in our local mountains, which is a ski resort in the winter, and Death Valley National Park and Joshua Tree National Park, which are both on kind of bookend sides of the Palm Springs area, got horrible flash flooding. The kind that carry cars away.
Yeah, and they're very arid because my dog is actually named Joshua Tree because my son's dog, and my son loves Joshua Tree National Forest, so we named him Joshua Tree. So I'd like to let Alexandra know that both Jan and Sally are in Connecticut. Connie is in California. Kieran is in Tenerife because he's close by. And Susan is in Virginia. Susan, how is Maggie doing? Are we getting a little good behavior, or is she still?
Well, you know, we started the trazodone with her and it's like night and day. I mean, she's so much easier to live with. Of course, I feel guilty using the trazodone, but until we can figure this out, it's the only way I can live with Maggie.
Yeah.
And you know, you said the theme was the herd lawsuit that happened. Right. Well, I live just a short distance from that courthouse, just for your information. Yeah, that was quite a spectacle, that lawsuit, really. Be interested in hearing what you're going to say about that.
Well, I probably won't talk much about that because it has to do with, we talked about different ways to resolve conflicts. And of course, I'm always one to keep it out of court and keep it off the internet as well. So we can touch on that at the end, but absolutely, if anybody wants to know about it, I'm happy to. So Alexandra, I see your baby in the picture. So tell us her name and your name and why you're here and where you're from.
Awesome. My name's Alex, or Alexandra, and I'm from Dallas. This is Wiggle, and yes, we're working on an agility course for pets that's controlled by a phone. So, and it has motion sensors that are connected to a treat dispenser. So the treats motivate the pet to run through the course instead of a human. So they'll get exercise without human. So that's what I've been working on and why I've ended up here. And I'm so glad, I'm so glad to meet everyone. Yes. So.
Oh, fabulous. So we don't have anyone from Texas. So I'm so glad you're here. And what is your dog's name again?
Wiggle.
Wiggle. Oh, Wiggle. I love Wiggle. I have a friend who calls her Irish setter Wiggle Butt. So what is she or he?
A poodle.
I love that.
Yeah. He has it.
He has a puppy cut.
Yeah. I mean, it's because I do it myself. She doesn't always.
And you know what?
Before an event, she gets ready. So.
It is perfectly okay to have a poodle in a puppy cut. I have friends who have a black and white poodle, and they're always in puppy cuts because it's cool for them, it's easy for you, and we love it. So welcome, Wiggle, and welcome, Alex. Connie, I went to you. Susan, I went to you. Oh, Kieran, how's everything in Tenerife?
Oh, business as usual, all good. I'm going to say I've actually seen Alexandra's invention. I've seen a video of it, and we talked the other day, and Alexandra is actually the rising star of innovations in the show dog world.
Oh, great.
So she has, I think, some ideas that will probably transform the way people show dogs or prepare dogs for the show. So I think, Alexandra, you're in the right place at the right time, to put it that way.
Oh,
And I suppose I just add very quickly, and this is something you know about, Deborah, because we had a little breakthrough with the book today. And the other thing, Alexandra, is nearly everybody here has played a part in putting the book together and everything else. So I was in discussions with the West African Centre for the Protection of Animal Welfare, sort of a long title, but it's the umbrella group for 8 African countries. And they're going to start using the book and the course that we'll have produced by the middle of September. And we talked about the MAAP program as well. So it's they're quite interested in the way these innovations seem to be light years ahead of anything that's been produced so far. So I suppose the core of the discussions was, if you're going to bring in an educational program, there's no need to make all the mistakes that have been made in Europe and possibly the States for the last 200 years.
You know, it's really interesting you brought that up, because I'm talking to a guy in Africa about some conservation work that's being done over there. So I'll have to talk to you offline about that, because he's in South Africa, not West Africa. So he's in South Africa. So I'll have to see. I was actually supposed to have a call with him this week and it didn't happen. So I'll have to see what occurred. He's out in the bush. He sometimes has people come for trips, and he was one of our guides when we went. So for everyone's edification who's listening here, who might be new or who might be an old timer, what does MAAP stand for? Well, it stands for Making a Plan for Your Pet. It's the most important thing you can do in your life. Having the plan in your head is absolutely useless because if something happens to you, no one will know about it. So Alex, your job for tonight, because you're new and everyone else here has it, right, Susan, is the sticker on your door or your refrigerator that says, in case of an emergency, please do not remove Wiggle from my home. Leave Wiggle here and call one of these 3 people who know what to do with Wiggle, and will be here within 2 or 3 hours time, and Wiggle will be fine. If you have a nosy neighbor who can also cement in the EMS or Animal Care and Control's mind that she knows what you want to do, and that, or she or he knows what you want to do, and so don't take the dog, leave the dog in the house. Here I am. I will take care of the dog until the 3 people arrive, or whatever. Because what happened during COVID, and what usually happens, is if you get sick and you're taken out of the house, your dog is taken by Animal Care and Control. And if you are really ill, the 5 to 7 days that Animal Care and Control will hold your dog and call you to say, Alex, what do you want us to do with Wiggle? You might not be able to answer that call. And if you can't answer that call, then they send it to a shelter. And if it's sent to a shelter or a poodle rescue, because he's a beautiful poodle, then he might be adopted. And once he's adopted, you can't get him back. So I am a huge proponent of making sure you have the information available that tells people that you have a dog, that dog has at least 3 people who they can call to come and care for that dog. If you have a nosy neighbor, that's great too. They don't really have to take care of the dog. They just have to stop the dog from being taken out of the house, because they know that you have the names in there and they can point it out. If you don't want to put people's names and numbers on the door, because some people want more privacy, put a big card on and say, there is a yellow, red, green, blue, whatever folder in the kitchen with all the names of the people who are going to come and take care of Wiggle in the event something happens to me. So tonight, after we hang up here, I would love for you to do that. And if you only have one number, great. Make sure if it's a family member, you'll use one family member, because most of the time, if something happens to you, the family member is going to be going with you. So to be able to have someone else as a backup as well is key. So making a plan is the M. Addressing the needs of the pet, which we're going to talk a little bit more about nutrition. Addressing the needs of the pet is important because, of course, Wiggle is a unique character. There are certain things about Wiggle that nobody knows, only you. Maybe he's afraid of thunder and lightning. Maybe he doesn't like little white dogs, because I know one dog on this who will remain nameless, who doesn't like little white dogs. And then maybe good with cats, bad with cats, afraid of thunder, not afraid of thunder, runs like a cheetah if you open the door, or is very biddable. These are the kind of information you want to write down about your pet. So address the needs of the pet and address the idiosyncrasies of the pet, both good and bad. Did they nip somebody? Will they nip if they're cornered? Let people know. And it's not a criticism of your dog. It's just giving your dog a better chance to be able to be understood by whomever is taking care of it. Appoint caregivers. So I always say they have to be, you have to have at least 3, which of course starts everyone having a heart attack. But both Sally and I know that at the last minute, somebody can say, oh my God, I can't take care of your dog. And you need to have a backup and a spare backup. Only one of the caregivers can be a member of your family, because if you or your family member gets sick, you want to make sure that you're with your family member or they're with you. So you want to make sure that when you appoint caregivers, they have to be family members plus others. And then finally, you have to publish that plan. So you have to tell someone about the plan you've made, because if you make that plan and you don't tell the caregivers and you don't give them the list of, addressing the needs of the pet, then nobody's going to know about each other. So Sally's not going to know that I'm on the list for you, and that Jan's on the list for you, and the Connie's on the list for you, because God forbid they call Jan and she says, oh my God, I can't take care of Alex's dog. I really, but I know that, Sally's close or Connie's close. So we all need to know who it is that is the caregivers on your list. So publishing it is the single most important piece. Not only do you publish it with your family so they know what you want to have done, you need to publish it with your veterinarian, because your veterinarian will not allow anyone else to come in to take care of your dog unless they're in his file. So you have to make sure that your caregivers' names are in your veterinarian's file. So if for some reason they need to take the dog to the vet knows about them. Your attorney should know about them. And as I said, all the caregivers should know about each other. So I want to welcome Andrew. Andrew, we introduce ourselves. You don't have to. We usually say where we're from and why we came and who our pet is. We're a little dog heavy here tonight, but we love cats and birds and horses as well. So let us know where you're from, what brings you, and what your pet is and their name.
I'm Andy Peterson. I'm from New Glarus, Wisconsin. My pets are a kennel full of Irish setters and a litter of 6 puppies that are now 9 weeks old. So I'm here to, I've been here once before, and every week I mean to come back on and join. I was particularly interested in the area of pet loss and grief. It's one of the areas that I specialize in my practice as a mental health professional as well. So that's what brought me tonight.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we always address pet loss and grief because my friend Valerie Adams is a vet nurse who specializes in end of life and also in preparing for the loss of a pet and then living through the loss of a pet. There are so many groups out there now, Lap of Love. Sally and I had some people who came over and gave us a really softer landing for the loss of our pet. It really is something you need to, unfortunately, recognize is going to happen. We'd all like them to live for the rest of our lives, not the rest of their lives. However, they don't behave for us that way. And so making sure that we plan for the care of our pets when we are with them, right? But also plan for the care of our pets when we're not with them. Because when you're addressing the needs of your pet, right? That's one of the A's. When you're talking to your appointed caregivers, you want to make sure that you let them know what you would do at the end of life. So if you're someone who wants to make sure you give your dog, your cat, your horse, your bird every chance based on the quality of life, because you've had this conversation with your caregivers, then they know I'm supposed to do A or B. If you're someone who says, well, I really want to make sure that they have the life that is full. And if they can't have a full life because say they have osteosarcoma and their leg has to be removed, or they have cancer and you might not want to do the chemotherapy, you might want to just do palliative care and then let them go. You need to explain that to your caregivers in the event you're not there to make sure that your pets are cared for. These are, of course, suggestions, because if you're not there, your caregiver is going to do the best they can. They're going to make sure that that they're going to follow your directives, but making sure you set up and set forth the goals you want to have with your pets is absolutely key. It's so difficult to think about end of life. We really don't want to think about end of life ever. However, it does come, and making a plan for it and expressing those plans to the people who are going to care for your pets. If you can't care for them short-term, long-term, because it might be that something might come up with one of your pets and you're just ill and not able to really have a conversation, then it really is the kindest thing in the world to make sure your caregivers know what you would do if you were there, and they will follow your lead. Now, I know some of us have gone through that. I know, Jan, you've gone through that. Sally, you've gone through that. Connie, you've gone through it. Andy, I'm sure you have. And Alexandra, I don't know how many pets you've had, but you're very young. So I don't know how many times you've gone through that. And I know Susan has had 2 Catons before and lost them. So let's share with each other what it was that we tried to do for our pets and what we would tell a caregiver in the event something occurred to our pets and we weren't able to, either we were dead first or we were incapable of making a decision. So Connie, I'm going to start with you.
Well, that's a real tough one. And you always want to be with your pet when you do make that awful decision. And when your pet is telling you physically and emotionally that it's time to leave. In fact, my middle sister, who lives in the Bay Area, has a 13-year-old golden retriever. She's had Goldens for decades. And this 13-year-old has inoperable throat cancer, and she's hanging on, but she has her good days and her bad days. And we recently had a family reunion down here, and my sister Pat in the Bay Area declined to come because she was afraid to leave her dog, even though she was going to leave her with a very dear friend who is a golden person. So that is a real tough one.
Yeah.
I think that the best thing to do is to put it in writing what you want done for your dog, because of course you as you know, being an attorney, you have to authorize the euthanasia. So you definitely have to empower somebody if for some reason you either are not home and your dog is in an irretrievable medical state, or an accident happens, or whatever, where the dog has to be put down. Somebody's got to have that authority.
Right.
So that's a real toughie.
Right. And especially if you can't be gotten in touch with.
Right.
Jan, what do you think? Because I know you've had some that have passed as well.
Having had a cat with an inoperable tumor at the age of 18 and looked into surgery and really thought I was never, I think that I would be specific in saying, okay, well, if there is surgical intervention that can be done, how much, what kind of prognosis are they giving the animal afterwards? Because like for my cat, they said, I wasn't doing surgery on an 18-year-old cat anyway, but they said 6 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, 6 months, I'm not going to do that, and I probably wouldn't have done it for a cat or an animal that was much younger. So I'd probably say, depending on the treatment, what's the prognosis afterwards? Because I think I would probably opt to say no. Yeah. Please don't do it, because, I don't want to put them through that for, so that they can live an extra 6 months, because what kind of quality of life post-surgery are they going to have as far as surgical recovery goes? And, how many quality days are they really going to have after that anyway? Right. So that would be one. And since in my work, I work a lot with pets that are transitioning, doing Reiki. Actually, I've had pets pass while I'm doing Reiki on them. I would actually opt for every one of my pets to have that gift.
Yeah. To have that happen while, even if you're assisting them in transitioning, if you can put them in a state where they're calm and care and know they're cared for, I think that's the most important. Even if, say, you're ill or you're not there, knowing that you want someone there with them is so important. Sally, how about you? Because it is important to you as well. I know, because we walked through Dulcinea and Darla's rainbow crossing together, and Buffalo Taco.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jan and Connie just said. I was with a young man, and he just had his dog euthanized, and he said, and the dog was old and sick, and he said, I would have done anything to keep my dog alive, but I had to give him injections every day. And he said, the dog looked at me like, why are you doing this to me? And he said, and then I knew, it was time right then to let my dog go. He said that I love the dog. We'd had a great life together, but he's looking at me like, why are you doing this to me? And he knew that was the time. So I agree with both of you. You have to write it down, what you want to have happen, when.
And I don't want to criticize anyone who wants to go to every length known to man to save their dog, because that's what they want to do. However, I would suggest taking a minute and breathing and looking deeply into your dog's eyes and seeing whether or not, like Sally said, the dog is looking at you like, okay, I know you need me. I know I'm really important to you. However, I would like to exit stage left. And I have to tell you that most of my dogs have told me I would like to exit stage left. I know when I went to see Polly, when we, transitioned her, and when but Dulcinea and Darla and Buffy, all of them, when I arrived, it was as if I'm thinking I'm not the Grim Reaper. However, when I walked in, it was like a breath of relief. They just knew something was going to happen. And I guess I must be the Grim Reaper, because they sort of picked up and went, oh, thank God. And then easily left us with lots of tears and things. However, they knew that it was about them. And I think that's what we as pet owners have to really focus on. It's about them and not us. There is not one animal that we will have in our lives that we will want to keep with us. And our best gift to them, and the most loving gift to them, is to allow them to transition while they still feel halfway decent and know they're here. I'm going to check in with you, Susan, then I'm going to go to Alex and Andrew. So Susan, when you were transitioning your Catans, how did that go? Was that something you did in a way that you're going to write down for Maggie as well?
Well, I wasn't really able to get myself to the point where I agreed with the euthanasia. My one dog had hemangiosarcoma, and he actually died on Christmas Day. I took him to the vet. She said, if we brought him home, he might not last a day. And at that point, I did let go. But my other dog,
yeah,
I wasn't going to let go. And until I realized that, there was just no hope. I'm looking at his picture right now, and it just breaks my heart. But because he was such a wonderful dog. He was a show dog as well. And he was just magnificent in every way. So I don't know. I haven't really resolved that thought process very well. I'm still thinking about it. And, if something happened to Maggie, of course, my emotions toward Maggie are a little bit different, because she's been extremely challenging.
She's a handful.
An incredible handful. And, we've got her on the trazodone now, and maybe things can turn around. I don't know. But, my emotions or my attachment to her is much different than it is to my other dogs. So,
It's a
not
choice.
sure.
It's a choice that you'll make when the time comes, but that hopefully you'll commit to some written document in case there's a change that needs to occur when you're not there. That's always the key for all our pets. We want to make sure that if we're not there, that the people who are caring for our pets know what it is we would do if we were there.
Right. She's going to have a birthday on Sunday. She'll be 3. So right now that thing seems like it's far off, but
It
you
is.
just never know, I guess, too.
But you really don't. I mean, I've unfortunately lost dogs at 9 or 8.5 and things, and it's heartbreaking. And then accidents happen. Alex, I don't know if Wiggles is your first dog or if you've ever had this experience because you're so young.
I did have to put down a dog I got in college, Yoshi, my like the best dog. Of course, we all think that about our dogs, but in the whole world. And she, unfortunately, when she was 5, she got in an accident. She got out of the house and she showed up at the door really hurt. And that was definitely the hardest decision I've ever had to make and I still think, did I make the wrong decision? So, kind of, I think similar to Susan, I just have not resolved that. And I'm so thankful also for you sharing that with me, how to share my information and prepare if for the worst, just so that I can, of course, make sure it's not the worst. So I really am appreciative of that too. And I'm actually, I have a friend here and I know she's listening and appreciates it for her dog too. So.
Because it's so important to let people know what you want to do. So if you want to do extraordinary things for your dog, because there might be a chance, then they have to know so that they can do that for you, so they can put that in motion. And your vet has to know as well, so that you can put that in motion. Andy, how about you? I know you have little babies in the house, and I'm really jealous because they're little red babies, and they smell so good. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic, but Irish Setter puppies
smell good, sort of.
Well, how old are they?
They're going on 9 weeks.
Oh no, then they're just shit machines. Sorry, everyone.
That's right. I'm glad someone else knows that term.
and now they need to go.
That's right. So, well, I really appreciate this conversation, and it stirs a lot for me. Coming from a human hospice background, I realize how unique each situation with every animal is. My husband and I have come to kind of an agreement that we have chickens, llamas, dogs, and we had a cat. And first and foremost, we've kind of thought about it from the perspective of those respective families of people that we know. Like our dog people wouldn't be the people that we would, give documents about what we want done with our llamas. We will give them the dog stuff because they have the best understanding, and it's a different group of people. So that's the first thing. And then kind of the construct we have is, having been through some experiences that have been very difficult with a cat that had a mammary chain taken out and just suffered terribly. We've decided that we'll do palliative things and then we'll do pain management. And that's what we will instruct by documents for, anyone who has our animals to follow through with. But again, it's so unique. And it's interesting when I hear you speak, especially when you did, Deborah, about arriving and your animals knowing that when you're there, it's okay to go. It's really difficult, I think, because they look at us differently than they will look at someone else who is kind of, our surrogate, if you will, in our absence. So that's really hard. And so we try to be specific about what we mean in terms of both palliative kinds of cares and pain management cares. But one thing that we always stress in every case, and we just did this, we had a 7-year-old llama we just put down. Our number one requirement in choosing who's going to be with our animals in their last moments is who's going to be there. Yeah. Somebody must be there at the last moment. They will not, it's not okay. It's not acceptable to leave the room. That is just not what can happen. So we feel really strongly about that. And in terms of what we write down and provide that. And when we interview interview said lightly, friends that are going to be managing these sorts of things for us. That's our number one criteria.
Absolutely.
Can you be there? Yep.
It's absolutely key. Veterinarians say that the hardest thing they do is put down an animal without a family member there, or at least someone. So our caregivers, right? The people
Right.
we appoint as our caregivers, the pets have to know them. So you have to invite them over for barbecues 2 or 3 times a year. The pets have to know them so that, and I'm sure they do, because if you go on vacation, they come and feed the llamas, or they feed the cats, or they feed the chickens, or the dogs, or the whatever. It is important to make them part of your life, because quite frankly, that will give your dog, your cat, your bird, your horse the ability to feel secure that this person is going to help them in whatever state they're in, either if they're hurting, if they're not feeling well, if something, God forbid, they get out like Alex's dog did, if if that dog was being watched by someone, they would know that they could go to that person. It is so key to make sure that when we appoint caregivers, that we check in with them every year. So this is the other piece you've got to do. You have to check in with them every year, maybe every 6 months, because people's lives change so much these days, because, they are of best intention, and then life happens. So you've moved away, or you've moved to a house with no pets allowed, or pets under 30 pounds. And if you have a poodle or an Irish setter, they're going to have to go on a severe diet to get to be an under 30-pound animal. And we don't want that. So you really need to keep in touch with everyone, and keep those people in touch with your pets, because that's the key piece. If you're not there, you want them to feel comfortable with the person that they're with. Kieran, I know I didn't check in with you, and I'm going to, because you probably have so much thought about what we're talking about, because of everything you've written in the book and everything you're going through now with getting the book out there.
Actually, there's one comment. This goes back many years ago when I worked as a volunteer in a rescue shelter, which was a no-kill rescue shelter. And I was talking to the manager after one of the favorite dogs passed away, and he said, all livestock here is dead stock. And there's a certain sort of horrible matter of factness to that. But what I always sort of remembered is, you can forget about trying to prepare for the moment. These things have their own time, and there's nothing you can do about it. But and I suppose finally, just on the book, that you probably, as you, Debbie, went through every word in it before it was finished, there is a last chapter in it about saying goodbye to the family dog on the vet's table.
Yep.
And having the family present, and all that entailed. So it's I'd absolutely agree with Andrew that anytime we have a pet in our lives, I suppose anytime we have a friend or a relation in our lives, we always look back and say, well, I wish I did that differently or whatever. But those last moments of life, if you're lucky enough and fortunate enough to be there, all I would say is you just are lucky enough and fortunate enough to be there.
It is the hardest thing you will ever do in your life, yet it is the bravest, most loving thing you'll do. And I was looking on my phone while Kieran was talking, not because what he was saying wasn't important, but I found a cartoon that I'll share with Rose and have her put in the link to this recording later on. But it was Snoopy and it was Charlie Brown. And I don't think I can hold it up and have you see it, because nothing ever comes through. But it says, Charlie Brown says, "We only live once, Snoopy." And Snoopy says, "Wrong. We only die once. We live every day." So, we who own animals know that every day those dogs and cats and birds and horses and llamas live life to the fullest every day, because they are lucky enough to have us as owners, and they get to do what Alex is having them do with training for agility by, I'm going to ask next week that she tell us a little more. She can come, because I'd love to hear more about what it is that you're doing, because it sounds really interesting. Why don't we, see if I can, Kieran can connect us, because Kieran, do you have Alexandra's contact info?
Oh, yes, yes. Alexandra's actually been.
Because I'd love to hear more about it. Because quite
Yeah.
frankly, Why Do Pets Matter is the podcast that I host, and I'd love to know why pets matter and why Alex thought to do this instead of something else. So that would be great.
I
Go
would
ahead.
love.
Great, wonderful. Because I always keep us about a half hour because everybody is so busy at night, and now especially with the sun going down quicker, I'm very sad. Soon I'll be standing here and it'll be pitch black when I have this call, and it'll make me very sad. But I know this is sort of a difficult conversation to have. However, Andy, I'm sure you know that this is the kind of conversation that every pet owner needs to have with their caregivers and with their family. Because God forbid something happened to your animal and you're not home, everybody who is in a position of caring for your pet needs to know. They just need to know what you would like to do. I will tell a quick story about someone. Some of you have heard this before. There was a woman who went to the hospital with sepsis, and the doctor gave her about a 1% chance of surviving the sepsis. And she had 3 dachshunds. And her neighbor, who's her best friend, she and her neighbor had talked about what to do. Talk, not good. Write down, very good. What would happen if something happened? So she's in the hospital with a 1% chance of living. The dogs were in a kennel for about 6 weeks, and the doctors kept saying very little chance of her living. So the attorney said, well, she told me that if something happened, you were to call the breeders. And so the breeders were called. They came, they took the dachshunds, they placed the dachshunds. And the only way they would take the dachshunds was if the dachshunds would never be reclaimed. Like, if God forbid that 1% she survived, the dachshunds wouldn't be reclaimed. Well, P.S. she did recover, and she is completely dogless now because she made a plan for her pets in her will. But she did not make a plan for her pets in a pet trust, in a living will, outside of her will, which everyone has to do. And I am very flippant, and I apologize to anybody who might be insulted by this, but if you make all your plans for your pet in your will, you just have to make sure you die, because none of those plans come to fruition unless you die. So you have to make a plan that sits outside your will. That's what the MAAP plan is. And you have to make a plan that sits in your will that augments the care of your pets going forward. So I just wanted to say that. So before we wrap up on this happy discussion of the worst thing in the world that could ever happen to us as pet owners, letting our dogs, transition is such a different definition of a word, but for me, it's the perfect word for my dogs. They all transitioned in a way. I remember Daisy, who had bone cancer and broke her leg, and she was my heart dog of heart dogs. And forgive me if I start to cry, but I usually do. But when she was ready to go, she had a broken leg and a fentanyl patch on, and she hopped off her puppy cup that she was laying on at home when I brought her home from the hospital and decided not to cut her leg off. And she laid in the sun where she always laid. And my vet was there. We were ready. We were, just talking, because neither of us were ready to do it. And Daisy, if she could have spoken, she would have said, would you 2 fat old broads get this over with, because this hurts and I want to go. And my vet, Ren, said to me, I have never seen a dog tell me to euthanize them more clearly in their life than she just did then. So recognize that our pets live in the moment. They live in the day. They live every day to the fullest. Like Snoopy said, you only die once. You live every day to the fullest. So let's live every day to the fullest with our pets. So I'm going to go around again. So Connie, what are your thoughts for the last thoughts about this, difficult but important conversation?
Well, in fact, I may start crying too. Deborah, my heart dog around my neck, Bammy, who was my foundation bitch. Andy, I'm a breeder, owner, exhibitor.
Of
Wheaton's, other Irish dogs. I've got her daughter licking my knee right now, and her grandson behind me, fast asleep. She died a year ago at the age of 11 of protein-losing enteropathy, which is one of the 2 genetically transmitted protein-losing, potentially fatal diseases in our breed. And she had no symptoms. She was totally asymptomatic until 2 weeks before she died. and had been, very healthy her entire life. But she went very quickly. And when she started not eating, because she was Miss Piggy when it came to food, I knew that there was something wrong. And I immediately rushed her over to my primary care vet, who was fabulous. And she said, she's got ascites, she's very bloated. I can't really do anything because I don't have MRI equipment here, but she had referred me multiple times to a wonderful specialty vet down in Orange County. I live in Metro LA. And so I, raced down there. They took her in immediately. And they did an ultrasound on her. They drained God knows how much fluid out of her before they could even do the ultrasound and the MRI. And at that point, they thought she had liver cancer because her liver enzymes were elevated. Well, to cut to the chase, it turned out to be PLE. And I was also, but they thought that she was recovering and we would just manage her and she would have a chance to live because otherwise she was a healthy dog. And they do a lot better management today than they used to. So I was all prepared to pick her up at 5 p.m. Right before hours before she died, when I got a call from the vet and said we just got her out of her crate to get her ready for you to pick her up, and she suddenly took a real nosedive, turned for the worse. So let us keep her here and work on her. Well, I didn't hear back from the vet, and I didn't hear back from the vet. And so I decided, well, I'm going to go to bed because by this time it was 11 o'clock at night. And at 12:40 a.m., I got a phone call and I thought, oh my God. And it was the vet and she was in tears. And she said, she's really crashing. And I don't think we can save her. And I said, okay, I'll jump in my clothes and come right down. And I'm 40 minutes away from this specialty hospital. And the vet said, there's not time. She's got to go. And so I made the decision, and I have been haunted by that ever since.
Yep.
So those are my closing thoughts. It's something that's going to go with me to the grave. That's one of my very biggest regrets in life because I adored that dog.
Yeah. And you weren't there, and
I wasn't there for her.
And, we all have these stories. Absolutely. Sally, any closing thoughts?
No, no, that was just way too sad. I think the topic's too sad. I'm not going to add to it.
Jan?
My heart dog, died at 19. So, it's how I started doing what I'm doing now. But I think, I had to make the decision at a very young age when my cat got sick, and the vet said my mother took him in while I was at school. And the vet said, I think we need to put her down. And my mother said, I can't do it without asking my daughter. It's her cat. And my mother brought the cat home and, told me, and she said it was my decision. But I'm so appreciative that my mother did that. Like, I might look at it. I was 12 years old. But when I think of the alternative, like, had she not asked me, I would have been absolutely devastated.
Always questioned whether or not that was the right decision to make.
That's right. If she had just done it and the vet had just done it and I hadn't gotten the opportunity to say goodbye,
yeah,
I think I would have just been heartbroken. So as hard as it was then, I was always so thankful to my mother that she actually said, no, we've got to wait.
It's interesting because some vets will work so hard on dogs to make sure that they can make it. And I know that I had Kay Scarpetta, who is another one of I've had many heart dogs, and she was very sick. Someone had poisoned her. So my vet had brought her back from the brink 3 times. And the 4th time I walked in, I had been traveling and I walked in, and again, Kay raised her head and said, oh, thank God I can go now, because she was ready to go. And my vet was working and says, I'll take her home. I'll work on her all night. So I pulled up, Kay's ear, and I said, she's going to work on you all night. And I know, and it's time to go. So please just run over that bridge at 100 miles an hour and just go. And sure enough, my vet was driving home to her house, and she called me within a minute or two after we left the vet's office when she was going to take care of Kay. And she said, "Oh my God, she just threw up once and then she was gone." And I said, "Kay, you little minx, you didn't do it with me, but at least you listened to me and you did it." Because I think for all of us, being able to make sure our pets are comfortable is the key piece of information we need to share with them. I know that that was what was important to me in closing. Susan, anything to add?
I just think, taking care of our pets every single day and doing the very best we can for them. And then when it becomes apparent that the end of life is approaching, you won't have any regrets about what you've done or how you've cared for your pet. And I think that's sort of the thing that I've come to in my own mind is, and that's why I really regret having to give Maggie the trazodone, because I hate to do anything that might harm her health. But I think, like you said, pets live in the moment, they live every day. So
to the fullest, if we could take a little bit of their, look on life and do it, we would be much happier people.
Yeah.
I don't know, Alex, what do you think? I think that, this, I know everyone is listening to this recording is going to say, my God, what gloom and doom. However, quite frankly, this is something we all have to address and talk about if we're going to make a plan for our pets. So Alex, any last thoughts?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for having the conversation, because I know it's really hard for a lot of people to talk about, but when something like that happened with my pet, it's all I could talk about. So maybe if I had prepared myself and had all this knowledge before, things could have been differently. Or gone differently. So I'm really grateful to you for making a point to actually get this information out there to everyone, because I know it's like a hard thing to do and be open about. So yeah, and thanks for giving me even a time to share about my dogs. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because we love all the dogs here, and Wiggles now is part of the crew. I will remember his name forever. Andy, how about you? Because you deal with this on the human level and on the pet level, and it really, it is a hard conversation.
It's a very difficult conversation, and I'm so appreciative that people are open to this, because it's so healthy to talk about. The thing that strikes me always is that, all of our stories are so unique in terms of all of our animals. And I think, what drew me to this tonight was kind of that one line that said something about, what do you say to someone who's lost their pet? And I think, given how unique all of us have these, how unique each of our experiences are, I'm, always kind of my, I don't know if it's a favorite line, but I think the most compassionate thing I can say to people is, I can't imagine your pain. I cannot imagine your pain, because, I may have experiences that are similar, but they are so unique to each of us that your pain is uniquely yours. And I just can't imagine it. And I'm just so struck by that. In working with families of children who have died, one of the things that I've often heard is people say they get really angry when someone says, I know just what you're going through. Because that negates the actual uniqueness of each of our own losses. So I think it's a valuable conversation. And if we're going to take that stance, then we have to have open ears to hear that pain from people. And so that's so important.
Empathy is so important. We don't have to show that we know what you're feeling. We just have to be there to hold you safe while you're feeling it. I mean, that's how I feel. I always share with people, I'm sending you love and strength, because the only thing that's going to get you through at this time, when one of these wonderful beings that have shared our life, been on the adventure with us, transition up to the Rainbow Bridge, and all of us believe, I don't think there's anybody on this call who doesn't believe there's a Rainbow Bridge. And when we get there, all those dogs that we've known our entire life are going to be there greeting us. We all believe that because otherwise we'd lose our minds. So, I have so many dogs there that I'm going to be knocked down, run over, but I'm okay with that. And I often say when I give older dogs away, I go, I wonder if they'll come to me or they'll go to the other person. But I think they are multiplied, so they all come. Sorry. So, Karen, what's your final thoughts? Because I know you always think of something around my friend.
Oh, right. I think I'll just pick up on something Susan and Connie said, which Susan said, if you do your best for your animals, well, that is absolutely the best that the universe and the cosmos could wish for. And
Yep.
When it's completely natural to have regrets, but if you sort of switch it around and think what goes on in a dog's mind, and dogs are masters of unconditional love. And I think if dogs were to look at us in our moments of regret, they'd probably burst out laughing and say, what a crazy human reaction. You have to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
As difficult and probably as impossible as it is, I'd say that is the one message a dog would send from the other side of the bridge.
Oh, I think that's the perfect segue. Thank you all for being here. This is the MAAP Community Call. We talk about those difficult things and those happy things often, about making a plan for your pet, addressing their needs, appointing caregivers, and then publishing whatever that plan is, because it has to be in writing. So until next week, I want you to kiss all of your babies for me because they are so important to me. I hold them in my heart, and I wish everyone a wonderful evening. Take care now.